Welcome to Profit Boss Radio, where successful women have paved the road to their own financial freedom. Each week, your host, Hillary Hendershot, financial coach, money mindset expert, and experienced wealth manager, will help you discover the keys to the wealth and peace of mind you want and deserve in her no-nonsense and authentic style. Starting right now.
Welcome to episode 62 of Profit Boss Radio. I'm Hillary Hendershot, your host. Greetings from sunny California. The weather has finally turned, and I feel a little guilty about those of you who are out on the East Coast where there's storms and snow and like dangerous storms, like plane grounding storms. It's a big deal, and your flight delays are catching up with us even out here in San Jose, but it's a sunny 70 degrees. I'm loving the vitamin D. Just love it. I don't forget. I know that the spring warmth and sun and weather makes my body feel good. So some exciting things on the Profit Boss Hillary Hendershot financial front. Looks like I've got a new office space here in San Jose, bigger. We're expanding, which makes sense, right? Going to have 2,100 square feet total, going to put it together, make it an awesome place for clients to come, for prospective clients to come, do some educational coaching events like that. So I'm looking forward to getting it all, nice to hang out in. And being in Silicon Valley, of course, it's in a building with a bunch of tech startups. And I mean, I don't know. I sort of wish there was like I can't work in a WeWork, right? I know a lot of you work in WeWork spaces, and, I have people's social security numbers, so I can't really share space. But it's going to be great, and I'm excited to be expanding. It feels right, energetically, timing-wise, and like that. So very good, very good. A little piece of news that I wanted to share with you. I don't know if you're like me, but I have an Apple TV installed on my television downstairs, and I have kind of given up on Netflix and Amazon for entertainment. I've sort of consumed everything on there that's even remotely entertaining. And so I watch some YouTube. Sometimes I watch educational or training videos, but sometimes I watch YouTube. And sometimes it's really funny, like especially like the late night lip sync contests and stuff. That's good stuff. But it seems like every time I click on a YouTube video, I get an ad for Nadex binary options. Now, I don't know if that's customized to me, like if they know something about me, they know I'm in finance, and so I'm the only one who gets Nadex binary options as a little ad pop up every time I click on a video. But here is a news blurb from one of the finance sources I subscribe to. Ready? Quote, "Elsewhere in crime and advertising, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority today issued an investor alert warning anyone involved in binary options trading through unregistered non-U.S. companies to be on guard for a 1-2 punch. Losses followed up by potentially fraudulent pitches to help recoup those losses." I mean, right? Like, because once you have the mailing list of people who were ripped off by your binary options scam, you might as well try to run another scam on them, right? Because you know that they're gullible, except they're not gullible. Maybe they're you wondering, are binary options really the thing? Like, this ad seems super credible. It seems crisp and clean and not spammy or junky. Yeah, except those guys are just playing on your desire to make it big and your lack of understanding of the markets and of what options are. I'm not going to explain what options are really fully right now. Basically, options are your ability to bet that the market or a particular stock is going to go one direction or another. So you can make money if the stock goes up, and you can make money if the stock goes down. You have to pick the direction, right? But if you get it right, normally people can only make money when the stock goes up, right? Because they own the stock. If it goes up, they make money. If it goes down, they lose money or they lose sellable value. But options are different. And so these binary options are being heavily marketed, and they're really sophisticated, and in my opinion, have absolutely no business being advertised on YouTube. The third thing, just random, I was trying to get my sound right here before I recorded this intro, and I pulled up YouTube just to play something so I could get my speakers right. And I see a Tony Robbins interview, and it says, "Tony Robbins warns the crash is coming." Wow. So for those of you who listen to the show, you know my reaction to that. We have no idea if a crash is coming or whether it's coming. I listened to about 3 minutes of it because I'm running out of time. I need to get this in the can. But he basically was talking about how federal banks around the world have been printing money for years. And this is a story that people have been telling for as long as I've been in finance. And I'm sure it was being told before I was in finance, but I don't have personal purview to it. So for the last 17 years, we've been hearing about how the Fed prints money and how debase of the currency is coming and you better buy gold. So I'm only 3 minutes into this YouTube 12.5-minute Tony Robbins interview. I'll be honest, I did reach out to my podcast bookers and ask them to please get me Tony Robbins because he's got a finance book coming out and I know you want to hear about it. But I'm going to be a little disappointed if he spends the bulk of the book trying to get you to buy gold. I know that Tony's new thing is financial services. That was pretty clear after he wrote Money Masters of the Game or Master the Game, the last book he came out with, that he really advocated a market or index-based investing until the very last chapter where he sort of pulled an about face. But so I'll be digging into this and I'll be letting you know what's going on in Tony Robbins land and why that is. So I've got a great interview for you today, especially for the mommas. I've got Dana Malstaff. She has a bunch of A's in her name and they're all either, well, I can't if it's Dana or Dana. I'm pretty sure I said it right. Dana Malstaff, because there's the Dana and then the Malstaff, which is a long A and then a short A. It's really confusing, but she's an epic lady. We had a great conversation. She talks about the struggles she went through, feeling when she had a baby, starting a business, feeling guilty about being with the baby, feeling guilty about being with the business. And boy, just over the last 9 months, I can relate. I should always be doing something that I'm not doing. And she talks about how she really worked that out. She gives practical solutions to, I think, very nuanced problems. And she's an extremely articulate woman, talks about how to run your business in 10-minute increments and really gave me some free coaching. I said, you know what? I'm going to use this opportunity. This woman obviously knows something I don't or has thought through this and come to a conclusion that's powerful in a way I haven't. I experience a little bit of time conflict now as a new mom and a business owner. So I think you're going to love the interview. If you want to get access to any of the things that Dana and I talk about in the episode, just head on over to hillaryhendershot.com/62. I hope you love this episode of Profit Boss Radio. Dana Malstaff, welcome to Profit Boss Radio.
I am so incredibly excited about this interview. We're going to have a blast.
We are going to have a blast. So, Dana, tell me, I just want to start with the big stuff. What makes you an expert boss mom?
Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Expert, not at all. No, I think what's funny is a lot of people tell me, Dana, you're the boss mom. And I'm like, no, boss mom it's like Batman. It's like this thing that's bigger than all of us, you know? And they're like, no, you're the boss mom. I'm not an expert at being a mom and I'm not an expert at being an entrepreneur, but I do think I'm an expert at really quickly recognizing the things I shouldn't feel guilty about because we're all dealing with these same things and it's impossible to be perfect in those spaces. So I think I am an expert at quickly recognizing where I'm being too hard on myself and moving myself forward from that. And I'm an expert, I think, at recognizing that the idea of work is not negative and that it massively impacts our children, the way we see work and how we deal with it and how we impart that view of the world on our children. And I'm an expert at saying, we got to change that. And that's other than that, I have no clue what I'm doing most of the time.
Beautiful. So how did Boss Mom come to be?
I quit my job. And by quit my job, meaning there was a change in management and basically I was going to get pushed out anyway. So I'm a proactive person. So I went to my manager and I said, I see that you guys are firing everybody that the last guy hired. So can I have an exit strategy? And so I was actually still friends with the person that let me go. We created an exit strategy at my going away party. Everybody got me drunk and I got pregnant. So that's basically how my story started. And I pretty much wanted to be an amazing mom. I only like doing things if I'm going to do it well. In my opinion, why do something, haphazard? If you're going to spend time at it, just dedicate yourself to it and do it well. Otherwise, it seems pointless to me. So I'm going to be an amazing mom and I want to be an amazing entrepreneur. And I had no idea how to do either. And in both instances, there's absolutely no amount of reading, education, conversations you can have that really prepares you for what's about to happen. And so I just jumped in, felt massively guilty, wanted my son to nap so I could work, wanted my business to work quicker so that I could hang out with my son. Total just chaos, didn't know what to do. There's a crying, good successful moments and then more crying. And we finally moved out when my son was 5 months, moved out here to California. We were in the Midwest to be back close to my family and started to recognize that I needed to switch the way I was approaching business and switch the way I was approaching that business wasn't taking away from my ability to love my son. And now I have my son at the time, and actually something that could fuel my ability to be a better parent. And that's where, before Boss Mom was Boss Mom, that's where it came from. Later, after I was in business as a business and content strategist, I was working that, but it was also slow going, that I was introduced to somebody that ended up helping me write my book, which I didn't think was going to be about parenting and business at all. But that's what came out of our brainstorming sessions. Decided to write a book, went out. Boss Mom wasn't even my favorite name, but I believe that your community will tell you what they want, and they resoundingly loved that. So like any good entrepreneur, I created a podcast for it and a blog for it, and
bought all the domains,
a group coaching program, and I just boss stamped everything, and that's kind of where it was. The whole idea is women were coming out and saying yes, like it's not just about teaching me how to be a business owner as a mom, it's teaching me that I can be a better mom for those kinds of people. There's some women that are born to be stay-at-home moms, and I love them, and they're my heroes. And I'm not like that, and I accept that I'm not. So for women like me that need to have something else to be a better parent, to not work when our kids aren't looking, because that's what we think we have to do to create a work-life balance, but to recognize that this integration of what we do is what our kids see, and that I don't want my kid to look to some princess on a television show or even anybody else to see what opportunities there are in the world. I want her to look to me. And so I'm the one that has to show her that work is a positive word and what that looks like. And that's how Boss Mom was born.
So do you not complain about work in front of your kids?
No, I don't. And I try not to use the word busy. Like I try not to use the word,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's like, hey, no, I've got a ton going on, but it's full. And hey, guess what? You go to school. This is what I told my kids this morning. I said, hey, Jake, you go to school today and mom goes to work, because at school you learn how to be helpful, how to be better in this world. And that's what I do at work, is I learn how to be helpful and to be better in this world. And so we really do the same thing. They're just different words because we're different ages. And so, when I talk about it, he sits there and we do write things together, and we talk about things, and I have conversations with them about the people I'm talking to. And they know, a lot of my kids know my clients, and my clients know my kids. And I only work with people who empathize with the fact that I have kids, and that they understand what that means in terms of if my kid falls and needs me to take him to the doctor, that's the priority. So yeah, I mean, if I ever feel the need to say bad things about what I'm doing during the day, then I sit back and I question, am I doing something that I need to be doing? And a lot of times it's because I'm trying to do something that's not my gift. And that's when I sit down with my budget and go, who do I need to hire to take this off my plate that's going to make them happy to do it, so that I can still run my business doing things that have to get done, but only doing the things that I do really well and really enjoy.
I just decided I'm going to use this interview to get some free coaching from you. I really am, but I have some more questions first. So
lay it on me.
So Boss Mom, help me understand. Boss Mom is like the community. It's like an aspirational avatar, and you actually have a different thing that you do for business to make money. The Boss Mom, you don't coach people on how to be a mom and a boss.
No, but it's an integral part of what we do. So my gift is content strategy. And what I mean by that is helping people understand what I call your free to paid journey. So making sure how you nurture people with your free content leads seamlessly to the things that they're going to actually purchase from you, how to create coursework, how to really engage people. My corporate background was in behavioral modification coursework development for large corporations. So that's my space, is the brainstorming, is the soundboarding, is the help putting all the pieces together. But I do that in a space that is specifically, most of my programs are, not all of them, but most of my programs are specifically for moms. So what that means is, one, if you're in group coaching programs, we have moms that are breastfeeding on our calls. We have moms that have our kids running around in the background, those kinds of things. We also approach how we tackle business, understanding the restraints of a mom. So we like to do things in, break down things into 10-minute increments, talk about how you batch time depending on the time you have, not saying, here's this formula, assuming you've got, 40 hours a week and everything, but assuming that, hey, maybe you don't, or maybe when the kids are home sick and you still have to get things done. So we really do approach the way we work with people from the understanding of being a parent. And we actually have Boss Dad as a brand we're just launching because we have so many husbands saying, excuse me, could you do some of that for me? Because I have some of these same issues and nobody's building a community for me. So we're in the works of building that community out for husbands, because my long-term dream is to have these awesome retreats where one day the men and the women are separate, but then another day, to me, it's about finding your tribe, but you also have to be integrated in the rest of the world too. And I feel like it's a big strain on marital relationships when we go, oh God, I found my people in this community. By the way, my husband doesn't get me. We're like, yeah, but I could teach you how to communicate with your husband so he kind of gets you in the best way that he can, so that you guys can be really supportive to each other, because you can love us in this community where we, get each other all day long, but you still have to go home and, I don't know, want to make out with your husband and hang out with your family and your parents and your those kinds of things. So there's a big broader picture to it, but our programming is geared towards women and the way we understand the challenges that moms come up against.
Got it. So I don't know if you know this, but I had a baby 8 months ago. And she's amazing. And I was really organized and hired people to help me while I was out and recorded the podcast so that I had 12 weeks recorded and ready to go. And I only had to do one thing while I was on maternity leave, which that was when England left the EU. And so I had to come out of maternity leave to talk to my clients about the Brexit. But I was both organized and confident and overconfident. I think I was like, I got this. And then I came back and it was like everything was working. And now I've kind of hit this plateau. It's like there are real constraints on my time. And for months, yes, I was fighting through them. Like whenever I'm supposed to be with the baby, I'm actually angry at her because I'm on my laptop. And it never works. It never works to do both at the same time. And so I'm really interested to know, you said you're an expert at recognizing when you shouldn't feel guilty and then not feeling guilty about those things. So, for most of humanity, knowing is one thing, but doing it is another. How do you actually stop?
Sure. Well, there's a couple things. First off, in the instance you talked about, the scenario that I deal with is that I can't have my computer around my kids because my kids want to play on my computer. There's nothing more frustrating than trying to write an email when your kid comes up and wants to is adorable, but wants to play on your computer. It drives me insane. So I recognize really quickly the things that I don't want to have around them, but my computer isn't everything in my business. So when I work around my kids, it's either that I step away to do something on my phone really quickly that's, sending a message or something like that, if that's necessary. But mostly what I do is I take things that I have to write out, strategize about, work on outlining coursework, doing all the other things that have to happen in your business. And then I print out 2 of them, or I take 2 sheets of paper and I let my kid color and we have a conversation about, something that they can do while we're doing it. So we do it together. I'm a big believer in let's do it together. Let's sit down together. So if mommy's drawing, you're drawing, that kind of thing. So that when I recognize stuff that annoys me about my kids simply because they're curious, then I'm like, how can I take that element out and switch it with something that won't frustrate the hell out of me? So that's one thing that can help. But the second thing is you're always going to have guilt. It's like people saying, I'm not judgmental. I don't judge anybody. And you're like, well, you probably judge 1 million people a day, because we all do. There's no way not to. You live in your world and you're going to see people that don't live in your world and you're going to immediately have thoughts about what that means about them. So the thing to do is we take a deep breath and we go, hey, maybe just because she's wearing that dress doesn't mean what I think it means. I'm going to assume positive intent and I'm going to recognize that judgment's still there. going to pass through it almost like you would with meditation and just continue on to what's the next most productive thing that I can do, which in a lot of times is, if I can, say hi and have a conversation, find out more about that person and ask questions. So from a kid perspective, we do the same thing. Is I'm not saying that that the guilt's just gonna go away, that you're never going to feel guilt again, or even when you recognize it, that it goes away. But it's like that meditation is that you recognize it and you pass through it and recognize that it's not useful. That guilt is not productive. That guilt doesn't actually help us in any way. It's not a fight or flight mode. It's not something that's going to save us from somebody. Guilt is something that we put on ourselves because we don't feel good enough. So what we start to do is saying, well, what do I feel guilty about? Is it that you don't feel like your daughter's loved? Ask her. I bet you, it's 8 months, seems young, but she'll tell you. She'll look in your eyes and giggle or hold your finger, and that she feels loved. And that's the most important thing. So you doing something for a period of time isn't going to hurt. Just being in the same room with kids a lot of times is enough to them. And so the idea of what is it that makes you feel like you're not good enough, find things in your day and your time with your kids, with your spouse, whoever it is, to get that question answered. How do I help myself feel good in this space? Because that's what's going to help you get past that guilt and move quickly into something that's much more productive.
I think that I'm one of these who I probably hold myself to an impossible standard of business success. And so if you're climbing a mountain as hard as you can, as fast as you can, then you have to be climbing all the time, right? And so when I'm not on my laptop, I'm thinking the future I want is slipping away from me at this moment. And so I think it's that mindset that has to shift, because it's an unreachable standard.
True. But I also think, in the awesome part about the world today is that there's so much opportunity to create passive income, to grow your team, to, if what you want is more time to hang out with your daughter. You said it's a daughter, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. If you want more time to hang out with your daughter, then we sit down and we say, what in your business could we do that frees up more time? Because what I often find is we hold ourselves to this standard, but you might be spending time on things that aren't making you as much money as you could be spending on something like that. I'll be honest, my group coaching programs, we've now slowed them down and changed the dynamic of it, because to be honest, I make half as much for the time to, an effort ratio on those as I do coursework. So for the 2017 year, we've said, well, how can I still offer that in a way that's really valuable and dynamic, but also recognize is that it's not the most efficient and effective way for me to bring in revenue to my business. And we made that shift. And now we have a whole different dynamic, because starting in June, I'm going down to a 4-day work week. And I don't want that to just be something I say and never happens. So I'm setting things up now to say, how can I shift that? And then when I'm doing something and I'm saying, is this the best use of my time? Could I pay somebody less than what I could make in this hour to do that thing? And if the answer is yes, then I go, okay, do I have enough money to pay that person? And if the answer is no, then I say, well, how do I bring in that income so that I can take this off of my plate? Because the only way I'm going to scale the way I want is if I stop doing things that aren't worth my time.
If I were to describe that, I would say you're a demand for a life that inspires you, a life that works for you. You're like, I'm going to have this life work the way I want it to. It's a very empowered mindset.
Well, this maybe is my naivete, but is there any other mindset to have? I guess you know what I mean? Like, I guess when I talk about guilt not being, productive and purposeful for you, to me, it just seems like, and let me grant you, this past week when we're recording this, there was several times of crying. I had just a random emotional, I need to watch The Notebook and cry it out kind of week, like multiple glasses of wine, hot baths, extra self-care necessary. So I'm not saying I walk around skipping with a smile on my face and the whole world is beautiful, but I do think that it's not productive for me to think that I have to do something. I remember I was in a job right after college, and I was complaining to my dad, and my dad looked at me and he's like, I don't want to hear it. And I was like, but you're my dad. He's like, I don't want to hear it. Just do something about it. Quit your job. Do something. I don't care. Just do something about it. You're annoying me. And I was like, oh, at the time I was like, oh, how could you say that? Like, I can't do anything about it. I'm in this situation. He's like, yeah, no, that's not true. You do what you want to do. Like, it might mean you need to dig in 100% to get a good resume out there, or to, to really find somebody to help you discover what you really want and you love, but there's always something you can do. So it just got into my mindset of, if I ever am sitting there going, and ho-humming about something, or I'm not happy, or I feel stressed, or all of a sudden I'm staying up late, or things aren't happening or not getting done, or I feel bad that I'm missing things for my kids. And I sit and I'm a constant reassessor. Like every week I'm reassessing, tweaking, reassessing. And I tell everybody in all my programs, I reserve the right to make this better for you and for me. And that may change the way this is structured at all times. I promise to always think about you when I'm doing it. And I promise to always think about me when I'm doing it, because that's the best way we can make this productive and happy. And so that gives me that freedom. And I just approach things in the fact that, like, I always have a choice. I always have a conscious choice. So I have to think really long and hard about what I want that choice to be, because decision confidence is one of the best guilt killers there can ever be. If you feel really good about the decision you made to do that work instead of watch your child sleep or hang out with them, then you're going to feel okay about it, because that was the decision you made that was the most important priority for you right now. And the next time when your kid is the priority, you're going to feel good about that too, because decision confidence is what makes you go, yeah, no, I know what my decisions were, and I made one, and I'm happy to move forward with it.
I feel like you're a happiness coach too. This is great stuff. I hope what's that?
It's so funny because I'm not a happy person all the time. I believe decisiveness.
Yeah.
I think when we are wishy-washy about what we want or what we want to do, that's this space where, like, guilt and uncertainty, just festers and molds over, and like it starts smelling up the place, And so it's like, the more decisive I can be, the more action oriented I can be, but the more in control I feel of what I have and what I'm doing. And then that way, when I'm not sure of the decision, that's when I know, okay, who do I need to hire? Who do I need to talk to that's going to help me make this decision? Because I can't make it on my own. And that's often where my money goes, is to the things I'm not good at and to the people that are going to help me make decisions.
This is fantastic stuff. This is really great. Thank you. So are there tools, tips, or systems that people can use to integrate business and family? Like, have you really made an art of having it all and doing things together like you were talking about before?
So there's a couple things. Trello is a tool I use. I call it my work wife. It's
I love Trello.
free project management tool, or you can pay the $5 a month to get the cool, pretty backgrounds, which I do because I like cool, pretty backgrounds. But I integrate everything in there. So it's got my home, my family, my travel, my business. So integration, organizational standpoint, happen in that tool. I think makes it so much easier to run things. Integration for me is, if I'm working on something, I print out 2. So that I can have or now that my daughter's starting to get old enough, 3, so that if it's something my kids are going to be around for. I also things in my business from just an activity perspective, and it depends on how old your kids are. But I think about, how can I integrate like what I'm doing or what I need to do into fun activities or lessons for my kids. And my specialty is not creating activities for your kids, but from a how can I do things that are helpful for me and helpful for them at the same time, not thinking I've got to do an activity where we build a fort, which I love to do, but it has nothing to do with anything, and I have to get this thing done. I think, hey, I've got to get this thing done where I have to do this brainstorming and this mapping out. Okay, why don't we create a scavenger hunt? We'll map it out. And that way, as we're mapping out, I can talk out loud about how I would structure this map out and maybe kind of draw it out while the kids are doing the scavenger hunt. And it becomes something we do together, but it also serves me and my business at the same time. So, and then sometimes, I'll be honest, I turn the phone off and I don't touch it. And that the integration for me is that I'm only focusing on one thing, but I do both things sometimes. Like if I'm in the car, my kids are go for a drive, I fall asleep and I park somewhere and I pull out my computer. And I do that because my kids don't nap at home on the weekend, unfortunately. There's no tried and true best way. It's kind of figure out what happens during your day and how your kids engage best with you and the world. And then I think, how can I use that to serve me when I need to get things done, but I also need to be with my kids?
So in the same way that most people think about work in terms of an 8-hour day, and I know, it's the rare human that actually works 8 hours, some fewer, some more, but still there is that number. There's an 8-hour work day. And, we talk about getting 8 hours of sleep a night. Most workouts are an hour. Is there an amount of time in terms of budgeting, like a minimum amount of time you try to spend with your children per day or per week? Do you have any kind of thoughts about I need to get my couple hours in this week?
No, God, no. But this is what I do. My mornings are my space with my kids, except for Tuesdays when we bring the kids into school a little bit earlier because my husband and I sit and review my budget and what's going on in my business so he can feel like he's involved. So besides that, my mornings are my time with my kids. I pay attention to them and we hang out. And this morning we had a picnic, in their room with this new picnic set that they got for Valentine's Day from their grandma. We chase each other around and I integrate them into like making breakfast and let them make choices. And, we do all the fun things. And so usually what I do is there's no like set time where I take them to school. I mean, there's school before 9 and my kids are in like a preschool, so don't have to be to school at a certain time. But for me, the mornings in the situation I'm in now is really my time to just feel fun and have a really good time with my kids so that the rest of the day, I don't have to worry about it. Like I know they're loved. I know that we had a blast and we did fun things. And then when I pick them up at the end of the day, because I send them to school all day, I pick them up at the end of the day and it's the same thing. Like I honestly don't think time is the issue. I think engagement is the issue. I believe in parenting that I get on my knees and all fours and crawl into that table with my kid. I believe in, playing with the dolls and the tea sets and the Transformers and storytelling with my kids and making funny voices and those kinds of things. I believe that 10 minutes a day is far better than sitting in a room where you're not actually engaging with your kids at all for 8 hours a day. And so I don't time it by time. I time it by memories.
That quote's going on Instagram. Thank you. And so you talk about these running your business in 10-minute increments. How do you do that?
Well, so everybody's got a checklist. I look at my checklist. I look in Trello, what I'm going to do in my calendar, what has to get done. And let me say, most of the time I don't have to do this because I've got my kids that go to school now that my business affords that now. But when they come home sick, but I still have to get some things done. I take a look at my checklist. What I do is I break things down in a couple different ways. One is there anything that I need to get done that someone needs in order to do their job? Right. So if I have a team and those are the first things I tackle and I take that group of things and I say, okay, what can I break down immediately that's a 10-minute or less thing? So usually emails or things like that are the 10. So great. And I create each one of those things and I keep it like on a list that I walk around with. And when I get that moment where the kids are playing and they're quiet or something like that, I go and I just do that one thing, the one thing that I need to do that my team member needs and that is going to take me less than 10 minutes. And then when I look at the rest and I go, okay, these are bigger projects, it just gets broken down. If I wrote one that says, okay, I need to record a video, well, that's obviously not going to happen. But is there something I could do that moves this project forward that takes 10 minutes or less and obviously doesn't involve me trying to videotape myself while my kids are here? And the answer would be, oh, okay, well, can I just map out what I'm going to say? Could I script it out in 10 minutes? Yeah, I could do that. Or, hey, could I put on a Voxer, which I use as a walkie-talkie tool with my team, or a video or an audio file and just talk out what I want it to say and send that to a team member and have them, or even like Voxer will have the pro level. It'll take the first 30 seconds of what you say and transcribe it. And so just those little things is there something I could do to break down this project that I could do in 10 minutes so I feel like I got something done? I'm actually moving the project forward, but I'm not trying to tackle. Like what I find is that people do this. They go, I say, what do you got to do today? Like, let's break this down. And they go, okay, well, I have to create module 1 of my course. You're like, okay, that's like a whole project. Like, how is that one item on your checklist? Let's be realistic here. Like, we batch these things that we have to do and we create checklists based on entire projects. Like, hey, what are you doing today? Well, I'm writing my book. And you're like, all right, that's a horrible line item because you're always going to fail in getting that done. Like, are you going to write 500 words today? Are you going to outline just the like chapter ideas? Are you going to go create some buzz by just asking a question to your community about maybe the topic that you're going to start with? I mean, those are the things where everything can be broken down into 10 minutes. You just got to be willing to take the minute to break it down far enough so you get to the 10-minute task.
I recently took an organization course, and I'm already pretty organized, but I loved this course, which was based on David Allen's Getting Things Done. And one of the things that they taught in this course that was really breakthrough thinking for me and has really helped me move forward is never put a project on a to-do list. You have to break the project down into to-dos before it goes on the to-do list. Until then, it should be on the project list. And I feel like that's kind of what you said.
Yeah. So I actually have a journal. It's called the Be Purposeful Boss Mom Daily Action Planner. And it's pretty much a checklist, a pretty book that's got ability to create your checklist. But what I do is I also have training that goes with it that, that shows you how to use it with Trello, because I talk a lot about not allowing yourself to have rogue tasks.
Yes.
Or homeless tasks, whichever one you want to say. And those are the things where we just like write a bunch of stuff down that we need to get done. And then we just have that list, but we don't, from an organizational standpoint, say, where does that go? Is that like a home management project? Is that like a start a podcast project? Is that just a back office, revenue growth project? Like, what is the thing that it goes with? And so from a project standpoint, if you're actually making the project the line item, it does that same thing, because you look down and you go, okay, wait, what project does that go to? And you're like, I know there's a lot in there and there's no higher project that it goes to. Maybe that's a whole project. So I find that we will put them on the checklist. But the thing that we have to do next is we have to assess our checklist. Like, you can't just write down your checklist and start to try and check things off. I make a checklist and then I assess and organize that checklist. So it's like you've got to create a little bit of time to maybe one 10-minute increment is writing down your checklist. And the next 10-minute increment is saying, where do all things, these things go? Where's the higher purpose for these things? And then the next thing is, okay, how can I break this down into 10-minute spaces so that I know, because today I know I need that. And some of those, and then the next step is, do I have to get all these done? Like, one, is it going to actually help move me or my business forward is one question. If I didn't get this done today, is what's going to happen? And a lot of times the answer is nothing. So you could totally do it tomorrow, and so you just start to ask yourself those questions so that you whittle down to something that's manageable. Like, we put tasks that aren't manageable. You talked about holding yourself to a standard that's too high. We do that simply because we don't spend the time to drill down. We do that in life. Do you ever notice that people, like, they want to answer a question. You'll be like, who's your ideal client? They'll be like, oh, it's women. It's women. It's women who are like in it to win it. And you're like, that's awesome. I need you to spend about 4 more hours talking about this before I believe that you have any clue who your ideal client is, because brainstorming and really drilling down is vulnerable and it's scary and it's like nerve-wracking and it feels awkward. Like, if you're brainstorming and you're figuring things out and it doesn't feel awkward, then you're just making a list. You're not actually coming to anything real. And that you have to tackle your checklist the same way. Like, you have to drill down and be like, hey, do I have to do these things? And is this thing drilled down enough so I can actually take action on it? I mean, have you ever had a checklist item that's been there for like a month and you just keep skipping it?
And it's like, it starts turning into like cancer or something, like it's on your mind. You can feel it when you wake up in the morning.
And it's usually, sadly, the thing that's going to help you make money. Right? Like, how many times we were like, well, I need to call that person or write that email, but you just don't do it, even though it would take 5 minutes. And so I break those down. Like, I don't just break down the time element. I break down, what am I not taking action on? And how could I break this down in any way for me to take action on it? Like, what would that thing be? A lot for me, because I talk it out. If I'm not taking action, I actually have kind of a business colleague that we, help each other out. I will call her or message her and be like, okay, I'm not taking action on this. I'm not sure why. This is what I have to do. Like, talk me through this, because this has got to get off of my list. And she'll help me break it down and go, okay, this might not be why you're doing it. Hey, let's just write the email over the phone and let's get it done. I'll be like, what? That took me 5 minutes. I do not know why I was not doing that. This feels great. And so Yeah, you gotta not just be willy-nilly about the things we write down that we're supposed to, like, it's your time. People are so lax about what they put on their checklist, and they put a million things, but they say, yeah, no, my time is precious and I don't have any extra time. And you're like, you just put 40 things on that list, 90% of which doesn't need to happen. Like, you obviously don't hold your time sacred, or you'd care a lot more about what you put on that list. Did I just piss some people off by saying that? I hope not.
No. I think, yeah, you said on one of your episodes of your podcast, you said, look, I talk fast, get used to it. Just turn the player down so that it plays me back slowly. I think people are going to have to not only play this interview slowly, they're probably going to have to listen to it twice. That's good stuff. It's all gold. You're hyper productive, I can tell. Okay, so let's talk about my favorite topic, which is money. One of the things I love to remind business owners, especially women business owners, of is that when money is in your business bank account, it's not yours until you take it out of there and put it in your own personal accounts. Because we have to get to keep it somehow, right? So would you share with us some of the things, just systems, tips, or tools that are working for you financially in your business now?
Sure. Okay. So there's a couple things that have worked and a couple things I'm terrible at. So I'll totally share multiple.
Good.
I mean, when I first started my business, I totally did not pay myself, even though I should have.
Yeah.
When you say, like, it's not yours until you give it to, I totally just didn't even think about it. It was just like, oh, I'm just going to roll this back in. I'm going to roll this back in. So there was a thing where I had to create a milestone that was like, you're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that at this point. You're not allowed, so I created milestones of when I'm allowed to invest in things and when I'm not. And and I would have those discussions with my husband to try and make those decisions. And what's funny is I would have my financial discussions with my husband about my business, and I got really defensive. I don't know if anybody else has done that, because he'd give me advice, really great advice, or like critical, risk averse advice. And I'd get really angry and pissed off. And what I realized is I felt like he was an outsider that was just telling me something, even though he didn't know what my business was and how it ran. And so that's why we started sitting down more frequently, because it wasn't that he wasn't giving me good advice. It wasn't that I didn't know that it was good advice. I did. It was that I felt like he didn't understand what was going on. So now he knows what's going on in my business on a weekly basis so that I can take that advice better, which I am much better at taking that advice now. So from a business standpoint, we have a spreadsheet that's really dynamic. I'll be honest, creating a really great sound budget has not always been my forte. However, tracking my revenue and my projections has. So for me, I know who I am, and I'm very competitive, especially with myself. Mm-hmm. And so I would go in, and through my projection spreadsheet, I could go in and go, okay, well, what if I got one more client? Or what if I launched a different program? Or what if I did this? What would that look like in terms of what I want to get? Because my spreadsheet would tell me how much I need to pay in taxes, how much, and it's funny, there's this, people don't realize, but there's this funny like limbo space in business. You're making money and you get to keep most of it because you're not spending a lot. And then there's this spot where you're growing really well, but your expenses get a lot higher because you're hiring people and you're, getting tools and you're getting better coaching and all of those things, that where you're making more money, but you're not making more money. And so I always want to look at what that looks like. Like, does doing this one extra thing, is it just more effort? Does it really move me forward? Am I not making as much money because I need that money to pay somebody else to get me to the next level? So I'm really strategic about what my money means in my business and how to leverage my money to make it work for me. And I use it to go, one of the things I think people are terrible about from a finance perspective is someone will go, oh, Dana, I saw there's this new tool, this quiz tool, and I want to get it. I'm like, awesome. What are you going to use it for? And how's it going to make you money? Like, where's the return on investment? And most people don't think about an ROI for everything that they spend their money on. I do that because why would I spend money on something I can't see that I'm going to make money on? And I do that now because in the very beginning I didn't, and I ended up with a crap ton of tools and courses and things that never served me or I wasn't ready for. And so now that has to happen. I'm not allowed to spend money until I can track visibly like what that's going to do for me and how that's going to help me in my business. And that return on investment might be I'm investing in this, so it gives me clout because it's going to help me get clients when I launch this thing. Like, and it doesn't always have to be a money to money ROI, but you've got to be able to really clearly see where it's taking you, or don't spend the money, because we will spend money. We are constantly inundated with the best course, the best coach, the best thing that we need, the best product. There's all these, you can go to all the comparison ones. It's like, oh, this is why you need to move to this. And oh, you need somebody to help you create this. And we end up buying a bunch of stuff that we aren't ready to use. We lose that momentum. We try and do 10 things at once, and we've just spent a ton of money and didn't keep any of it. And that doesn't really help anybody. And then recognize that when you're scaling, that means something different in your business. Starting your business and the way you approach it, I think, is different than scaling your business. And you've got to look at your financials in a different way too. Like my budgeted expenses for, when I started when I started my business, and then from when I actually launched the Boss Mom brand, and then this year are different. Like my budget expenses for this year is as much as I made last year, because we're looking at a way of scaling the business. And we can completely track those expenses in terms of how they are making me money and what those resources are going to. And it's a really clear path. So we feel super confident about budgeting that in. And then we have we meet weekly, but I have like a monthly look at, does the budget fit with that? Does that make sense? Can we still afford that? Are we on track in the way we want it to go? So I don't go to the end of the year having, spent a ton of money and not made what I thought I was going to make. So it's still a lot of assessing and tweaking that's going on. But that ROI, I think, is the key thing.
It sounds like you are doing a really professional job of tracking both. You're paying yourself now on a regular basis, right? Did you say that?
Mm-hmm.
And you're forecasting revenue and then checking your actual revenue against forecasts. And so there's you have an eye on the ball is a good way to say it.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that, like you said about the way I think, to me, that's the thing that motivates me to move my business. Like, I love having conversations with women and exercising my gift and the brainstorming, but I'm also in a business, and the business is I want to grow my business. And so when I look, if I don't know where my money's going or what I'm doing with it, that's really demotivating to me. So to me, being able to see where that is, and when new money comes in, I mean, what's funny is I didn't joke. I actually set this goal for myself, and I told my friends, I was like, okay, I'm not allowed to drink until I hit 20K this month. They're like, well, why would you do that to yourself? And I said, well, in order to hit my financial goals, I have to hit 20K in reoccurring revenue from the beginning of the month, every month, which means if I want to be able to have glasses of wine all month long, that I have to hit 20K base. So that's really motivating for me, because I know what my motivation is, which sadly, my motivation is not to drink all the time, but I like a glass of white wine. So to me, that mentality of this is what I want to get to. So if I can't every single day as things are happening in my business, go in and say, oh, this is how close I am to that. This is how close I am to that. I could do this one extra post or do this one extra thing, and it hits that goal for me. Or yay, I celebrate, let's have a glass of wine. If I don't know what those are, then I feel like I'm just running blind in business, being helpful to everybody. And maybe people are paying me, and maybe I'm paying for things. But if I don't feel like I have that finger on the pulse, and that's to me what motivates me to grow.
Very good. Very good. I'm glad I asked. Dana, if people want to connect with you, how can they do that?
boss-mom.com is probably the easiest place to go. We've got the Trello that I talked about. We have a free Trello training that walks you through that. We're actually I bet by the time this comes out, we're taking my whole budget projections P&L worksheet that we created that I use in my business, and I created training for it, and we'll have that available. And they'll be able to see that right from the boss-mom.com page. So they can take a look at that. They can join our Facebook group, which is just hitting 10,000. And massively engaged, and all the other fun, exciting stuff. Listen to the Boss Mom podcast. Yeah. So boss-mom.com is the easiest place to go.
Fantastic. And I think you let me into the Boss Mom Facebook group too.
I hope so.
I hope so. There's like a pause. I think I just joined today. So that's very exciting. So if you come on over to the Boss Mom Facebook group, I'll be there. Dana will be there. It'll be awesome. Thank you so much for being a guest on Profit Boss Radio. It's been an awesome conversation with you today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This has been a blast.
Hey, Profit Boss. Yes, you. Lean in here. I've got something to tell you. Do you remember that movie Mean Girls with Lindsay, whatever her name is, and the fabulous Tina Fey? It was all about this group of in-girls, the Plastics. And Lindsay Lohan plays the new girl who wants desperately to be part of the clique. You get the picture. Tina Fey was hilarious in that, by the way. Did you know she wrote it? Anyway, I want to tell you about another group on Facebook. It's nothing like the Plastics. I mean, come on, we're not in high school anymore. And seriously, it's much cooler to lift each other up instead of tearing each other down, don't you think? Because as we all know, as women, it can be tough to know who to trust when it comes to getting real about money. That's why I'm so proud of all the courageous women in the Profit Boss Facebook group. It's kind of like hanging out with your best friends. You know, ladies who've earned the right to be called your friend because you're not afraid to show a little bit of vulnerability. It's like that. And by the way, we let the men join too. So if you want to be part of a group of wholehearted women and men who aren't afraid to grow and support each other, give us a visit and bring your friends. Just go to hillaryhendershot.com/profit boss and you'll immediately be redirected to a place where you can request admission, which we will give you willingly. I'll see you on the inside.
Thank you for listening to Profit Boss Radio, where creating success on our own terms happens every day. You're not alone in your journey to a rich life, and that's why Hillary is here to add value in each and every episode. See you next time on the podcast for women and money.